Hello friends! Let me introduce myself. I am Satri, number absent 22. Today I would like to present my story entitled Putu. Okay, the first thing, here is the character. The first, Mr. Adi, Mrs. Annie and Nina, Agus, Emma, and the last one, Mr. Herman. Okay, I start. On a sunny morning, at home, Mr. Adi and Mrs. Annie were seen talking while watching their children play. The first boy named Agus, the second child named Emma, and the youngest, who is still a baby, named Nina. The conversation was about their economy. Their needs are still not much fulfilled, starting from need for milk, pampers for their children, and the need for their children who are still in school. So, Mrs. Annie suggested that Mr. Adi to try selling, and Mr. Adi agreed. Mr. Adi chose to sell Satri. One night, Mrs. Annie woke up, hearing something falling from her husband's car. Mrs. Annie went out. She saw an ugly person in front of her car. Suddenly, the person just sighed.
Hopefully, the merchandise shall well, Mom.
And immediately left. Mrs. Annie was silent saying this. After looking again, it turned out that she saw a little mound of soil under her husband's car, and she just ignored it. The next day, her husband returned to trading as usual, but strangely, that day his trade was quiet. Towards noon, Mr. Adi took a short break at the shop to unwind. While he was resting, he was approached by a man who turned out to be his old friend. His friend's name was Herman. His friend asked, "Why Mr. Adi looks so sad?" And Mr. Adi told him what he had experienced. Mr. Herman saw this and suggested to Mr. Adi to perform a ritual so that merchandise would sell well. Mr. Adi was shocked. There was no way he could do that. However, his friend continued to suggest this and told Mr. Adi to try think about this first. The next day, saying that his street was empty, Mr. Adi could not stand it any longer. The financial funds were running low, as well as his capital for trading. Finally, in the afternoon, Mr. Adi came to Mr. Herman's house and asked about the ritual. Mr. Herman told Mr. Adi to prepare offerings in front of his house every morning. The next day, Mr. Adi did this. He pushed on his doorstep every morning. That evening, Mr. Adi went to Mr. Herman's house. He asked if there was any other way besides giving offerings and more powerful. Mr. Herman also agreed to Mr. Adi's request, but Mr. Herman said there was more payment that had to be given. Mr. Adi also agreed with Mr. Herman's words and gave a lot of money to Mr. Herman. Mr. Herman also told Mr. Adi to go home and just wait. He did this every day, but over time, his wife became suspicious and Mr. Adi also rarely worshipped and after got angry. The next day, he found his wife and children back. He was surprised where his wife wanted to visit her mother. She invited his husband, but the husband was angry. at the place where Mr. Adi traced love of buyer come to his business, and immediately his goods sell very well. He was very happy. However, when he returned from trading, he found the bad news. The boss, his wife, and children were traveling and fell into a ravine, and his wife and children died. Hearing this, Mr. Adi was very sad. That night, when he was contemplating, he found three pocong occupying his cart. The three pocong said, Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this, Daddy? They are crying. They are sad. When he found this, he ran scared to Mr. Herman's house. He realized that he had been trapped all this time, and he was very angry. When he got there, Mr. Herman was not there. And he realized that the three pocong who are occupying his car were his dead family. The husband felt sorry and guilty because he had done that to his family who didn't know anything. Everything has been destroyed. Everything has a sad ending. He now lives alone and experienced mental disorder. That's the karma he got. Okay guys, that's all about my presentation today. Thank you for listening and the attention. See you and goodbye!